Good evening, everyone. Whenever I say hello at this event, I always wonder if the Antler people are going to chorus back with the "Good evening, Darren." Um, Welcome to Failure Friday. This is our third in the series. I am kind of shocked at how many of you are ready to say Glastonbury what? Because when we put this date in the diary, I think half of the people that were involved were like, "That's when Glastonbury's on. I don't have a ticket, but I don't plan on being in London." So it's great that not all of you got Glastonbury tickets. Lovely to see you this evening. Um, Maybe just to give you a little bit of story first to Antler and then to Failure Friday. It's so great to see so many faces here this evening that aren't actually part of either a cohort actively or part of our portfolio. We've run this event now, as I say, into the third series with Techspace. So seeing more people that are kind of curious of what the event is about is awesome. Antler is a day zero investor. We started in Singapore in 2017 and launched here in London in 2019, just before the pandemic. What we do is 3 times a year here in London, we run a cohort that brings on board 70 exceptional entrepreneurs. So yes, everyone that is part of a cohort currently gets to smile when I say exceptional entrepreneurs. And thank you. And the hope is that within those 10 weeks of each cohort, they will find their co-founder, develop a business idea, and potentially secure investment from Antler at the conclusion of that cohort. We'll then work with them all the way through to greatness, as our tagline goes. That means that we have the funds available to be able to continue backing those companies all the way through to Series C. That's the... Why are we fundraising? Because other people need to get involved. And so, thank you for the heckle. You're supposed to be heckling other people, though, Colin. And I've totally lost my train of thought. So that's your first failure of the evening. So, Failure Friday itself was born out of those cohorts. What I've seen from working across 9 of those cohorts is that when you put really awesome people together, they want to often present themselves as best as they can. That makes sense, right? We all want to talk about the successes and the victories that we've had behind us that have formed who we are today. But if we look in the rearview mirror, it's often the things that we fucked up that make us who we are, that really contribute to the journey that you're going to take, right? So we started running Failure Friday in the early weeks of the cohort to kind of break that ice, help people take the mask off and talk about the things that they really care about and show their values kind of in action rather than what they plan to do. We've seen it with the first handful of cohorts when we run these events, that people really starting taking to one another. They kind of push their biases aside, move out their judgments, and really just try and get to know one another. Also, though, from working with all the companies that we've backed, some 70 plus companies as of today, we see that that continues. That kind of bravado, that excitement, that we've just raised our Series A, we've just raised our seed round, we've just got our first £1 million contract. But nobody talks about all the things that the blood, the sweat, and the tears that got them there, because that's not sexy. So this is a space where we can hopefully share and celebrate those failures and help other people learn and support them as they try and navigate their way through those failures, which are inevitable for themselves. It should also be fun. So that's why there's the beer and the pizza. The failure is for you to listen and learn. The beer and the pizza is the fun bit. So please do stay. I really hate saying networking on a Friday evening. Please don't network. Please get to know one another. Please socialize. Please ask one another, so are you part of Antler? Are you part of Techspace? What brought you here? What did you think of that failure? Have those conversations tonight, okay? Don't do the, what's your job? What's the thing that excites you in terms of building a business, okay? Just let's use this evening to get to know one another. With all of that, if you signed up more than 48 hours ago, you will have seen something slightly different. We've tried to bring in a few prompts, a few nudges to help people kind of work together with this event and kind of bring a little bit more kind of structure to it, if you will, significance, if you will. So my ask of all of you this evening, when our 2 presenters come up and take to the stage and share the thing that they view as a failure, is to first and foremost embrace that failure. To kind of hear what they have to say and accept that to them, that is a failure. And that they have taken to the stage, shared that story, and they want you to kind of share in that reflection with them, okay? You might not agree. You might think that they have different means to an end. You might think that they have different values or different motivations, but that doesn't mean that what they're talking about up here isn't failure. So please do embrace when someone comes up here and says, this is what we've done and this is what went wrong. Take that on board, reflect, speak with them, but don't judge them for that failure. That's where the learn and adapt comes in, okay? You're gonna hear a lot about what led up to those failures, what it was like going through those failures, and what they hopefully have taken in terms of lessons. And they're not gonna repeat that failure. That's not the guaranteed bit. But it should kind of help you learn and adapt the processes, the way that you work, how you relate to one another, these kind of things. The penultimate is to share and inspire, okay? Like, these people that are coming up, they've started something. They've taken that risk, and everyone in this room is more than capable of doing that, okay? You can all start something incredible, whether it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th time to get there. That may be the case, but everyone kind of has that ability. Talent isn't kind of equally distributed, and neither is opportunity. Some people are incredibly kind of gifted to be able to start these and take these risks, and I would say that there's probably a density of those people in this room. Then the last one, as we say, is support and empower, okay? If there are people here talking about the failures that they've been through, not the failures that have been necessarily represented on the stage, can you relate to that? Is there something that you've done similarly before and you've navigated a way around it? Let's use this space to support one another in that success as well, okay? Those are my 4 asks: that you embrace failure, that you learn and adapt. I should really have learned this by now, shouldn't I? That you learn and adapt, and that you share and inspire one another with these stories. So what's really exciting as well is that every time we run this event, we do ask you to submit whether you are happy to take to the stage, happy to come up here and share that story, okay? And this evening, that's what's happened. We have people taken to the stage, not necessarily headhunted by Techspace, not necessarily headhunted by Antler, to come up and bring these stories forward. It's people that have been to previous events, heard about previous events, that are like, okay, this sounds like something that I actually want to contribute to. So that's maybe my 5th ask of you. Cool. So the way that this actually runs, maybe a little bit of housekeeping first. You may have spotted it's a little bit warm. So we'll go as swiftly as our presenters allow us through this evening. That means you'll have 7 minutes, roughly, presentation. They're not going to get yanked off the stage when they hit 6:59. And then we'll do a couple of questions to the presenter up on stage, go straight to the second presentation, and then that's us in terms of the stage-oriented stuff. At that point, approximately, pizza will arrive, and we'll figure out if we can open the door to let some air in, or if it's still hotter outside than it is inside. We won't do that. The main aspect of this, as I say, is like after those presentations is just take a moment to reflect on what the person's shared. You don't need to ask that deep and meaningful question. If there's just that prompt while you're listening to the story, you can ask that question either when the person's on stage or immediately afterwards, okay? We all happy? Are we? Yeah. Right, okay, I'm actually gonna do this. When we used to run Failure Friday, during the lockdown and people had no social lives, we really tried to make this as kind of ecstatic as we could, okay? And so when everyone was sat in front of their monitors at home kind of joining in on this event, what we did was every time I said the word failure, they screamed the word Friday back at me. So just because it is swelteringly hot, I'm gonna add some more hot air to the room. If I say the word failure, Friday. Failure, failure. Thank you. So first up, I'm going to ask Martina Schwarz, who is part of the Techspace community, to come up and share her story in terms of building something, learning through failure, and coming to the stage today to reflect on that. So Martina, as I say, is part of the Techspace community. She's the founder of Blackmarket, which looks to kind of directly address problems within terms of single-use plastic that we have in our homes. I'm not going to say much more than that because you're going to do a much better job of introducing it than I am. But if you can give a big round of applause to Martina as she comes to the stage.
Cool. Thank you very much. I've been promoted to CEO now. I like that. So Amazing. My name is Martina Schwarz. I am the founder of Blackmarket. I just thought I'd give you a little bit of an intro on my background so you have a little bit more context. I have a bachelor's degree in product design. I then started my career working with corporates, so in the field of FMCG, consumer packaged goods. I've always gravitated more towards beauty, but I have experience in food and beverage as well. It was a fantastic experience. I've learned so much about the category, how things work, how do you create packaging and make it work all around the world. But at some point I realized that maybe I didn't want to do this in the long term. So I thought an MBA is probably a great starting point. I completed my MBA while working full-time at a design agency. Probably 2 weeks before I handed in my thesis, the first COVID lockdown happened. And obviously that was a big moment. My thesis was about packaging and sustainability. And I think this moment was sort of a catalyst to start Blackmarket because everyone was obsessed with hand hygiene. I knew a lot about packaging and I was really interested in sustainability. So that's really how Blackmarket was born. That works, yes. So the problem that Blackmarket is trying to address is dealing with single-use plastic packaging and how they affect climate change. So at the moment, most brands are switching between rigid plastic bottles and they're moving to stand-up pouches in a film. So this is really problematic because it's not really addressing the issue. We're just moving from one material to another. It's not radical change. It's basically just an adaptation of a material. And this really bothered me. And I thought, well, I think we can do better. I was spending all my time working on these plastic pouches because as soon as COVID hit, literally all Unilever did was hand sanitizer and hand wash. And, I had sort of this insight that there was a bit more of an opportunity to do something else. So that's why I created Blackmarket. Blackmarket is a refillable liquid hand wash without single-use plastic packaging. But I'm here to talk about failure, so I'll dive into that right away. So I think the greatest failure, and the failure that I'm dealing with at the moment, is the fact that I didn't plan for scale from the start. I just thought, oh, everything's just going to work out. And it didn't. And I'm still managing that process now. But I think it's probably useful to explain how Blackmarket works because you probably have never used a hand wash that's this innovative, and it probably makes sense to show you how it works. So I have only 2 hands, so let's see if I can do this instead. This is our refillable bottle. You could use any bottle you already have at home. Obviously, that's the most sustainable thing, not to go out and buy something you don't need. There is a line here on the bottle that shows you the fill line. You just put warm water, tap water is fine, up to there. Then I'm going to use a table. This is our refill. You just put the entire refill into the bottle. The packaging is not actually plastic, it's a dissolvable film. So as soon as that is in contact with warm water, it dissolves and it becomes part of the product. So the packaging is a key ingredient in the hand wash and it actually thickens it. So it creates that gel texture. Put the entire thing in, close the pump, give a nice shake, leave it overnight. So it's best if you do it just before bedtime, and in the morning, you've got liquid hand wash. So that's the mechanism. The failure is all about this refill because that's sort of the key innovation and the key part of the product. So, don't forget the clicker right here. So, what are the mechanics of this failure? At the moment, these refills are manually filled. That is a huge amount of work. And as a person who has to actually fill these, it's really not working. And what I've realized is that I need to move to machine filling. So it means instead of this being a manual process, it will be a machine process. There'll still be a level of craftsmanship and handwork going into it, but by doing this, it will make basically a fundamental difference in how the company works. The costs will come down. Obviously, at the moment, it's quite a high cost component to do this work manually. With a machine, that hopefully will come down to 11p per unit, which would be life-changing. And you might ask, why is this actually a failure? Well, to be completely honest, without this change from manual to machine filling, Blackmarket doesn't have a future. It's not a sustainable business if the margins don't work. So it's a really key point of if this doesn't work, Blackmarket doesn't exist. And I've been working on it for 6 months. I think it'll take another 6 months to get everything straightened out. But if it works, there's a really clear path to growth and path to scaling up the business. So this is a new design. So what I have in my hand is the current one. Sorry. There, hope that doesn't roll. So the plan is to create a completely new design. So that's this sketch you have here on the side. I found a supplier in Liverpool. They work with Unilever and the Hut Group. This is everything they do, and they've decided to take me on as a charity case, I think. And we're working on a new design and an actual custom-built machine that will help basically fill these in a much more efficient way. So that is incredibly exciting. I'm showing you work in progress. This is only just a prototype, but it will make a phenomenal amount of difference. And more importantly, I can actually register IP, so I can protect this. And that is definitely worth all the hassles that I'm experiencing now. And it's worth not giving this to another business and letting them register all the great IP behind it. But I'm here obviously to hopefully give you some insights and help you, because I imagine most of you are starting a business or in the process of doing that. So this is what I've learned. Don't wait for the problem to resolve themselves. I think this has to do with my personality. I always believe that everything's going to work out, everything's going to be good, and that's not realistic. Like, if you have a niggle, sort it out, because it's just going to get bigger and bigger, and you'll end up with a failure like mine, and I would love for you to be able to avoid that. The next insight is probably have a backup plan. I started out with probably just one supplier per area. I now have between 2 and 3. So if something goes wrong, because something will always go wrong, I have someone I can call. I'm fortunate to have, pretty good network in the packaging field, but having a list of people I can go to makes a difference and makes me sleep a lot better at night. My last insight is, hopefully, it might seem like it's a contradiction, but it's not, because I believe all of these recommendations can sort of all coexist together. And that is, like, failure is part of innovation. Like, nobody ever created anything new and exciting without failure. That's the entire process. You fail, you make mistakes, you learn, you don't do it again, you do something different, and you iterate. But it's also a movement. Like, it's not a circle. You have to keep going forward while you keep learning. And that's the difficult part, because you're juggling so many different parts. So you embrace your failures, make smaller mistakes, learn from them, but just keep moving forward, because that's the only way you're going to get through it, and hopefully the only way I'm going to get through it as well. So that's it from me. Thank you very much. I do have one more slide. It's actually Blackmarket's birthday tomorrow. So if any one of you feel really inspired about sustainable hand wash, there's a special 20% off. If you go to getblackmarket.com, you can find all about it, sign up to a newsletter, or take a picture of the side. But yeah, I don't really do discounts often. It's not exactly feasible, but as it's the birthday tomorrow, feel free, and I'll see if it will go back the other direction. Yeah, thank you very much.
So thank you, Martina. That is probably one of the first ones to hit bang on 7 minutes.
I am Swiss, so you can count on me being on time.
So that means we have plenty of time for those 2 or 3 questions and answers. So if folks want to put their hands up, what I'm then going to do is just run around the room, give you this. Please introduce yourself, not just the question. So say, hi, my name is, thanks for, and then launch into your question. Go.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm part of the Antler UK9 cohort. My question was, what made you think initially that the manual filling would be feasible?
Naivete, probably. I don't think anyone starts a business if they know how difficult it is. And I think probably being naive has helped me, but has probably also gotten me into this problem as well. So yes, I wish I had figured this out 12 months ago, to be honest, but
Hi, my name is Pablo. I'm also part of the cohort 9. I'm an engineer, so I'm gonna kind of jump on that from the technical point of view. First of all, I spent yesterday, funny enough, trying to find refill soap. It was crazy because the best deals were just 10 of this 10 packages of the same thing all together. Just make no sense.
We do subscriptions.
Uh, don't worry, I'm gonna take advantage of that 20%. Believe me. Funny enough, like I know that you started with the soap, but from my view, the real I can be wrong. The real breakthrough is your packaging. Wouldn't you consider to change? I wouldn't say change, but don't you think that the fact that you can now automatize that and make it like the fact that it's like soluble already have overcome the market of just the soap, and it could be pretty much any product. I can see now I'm salivating now just thinking that you can sell capsules of shampoo, soap, whatever that is, and I put it on my suitcase and I don't have to deal with the liquids anymore. It's just crazy. I'm telling you this. Probably I'm giving it away. I want equity. I just the question is, why is not the packaging the real market and soap?
So I hopefully I will fulfill all your dreams, because the shampoo formula is in development. It's not quite there yet, so that's why it hasn't launched yet. It's also cosmetic products take a long time to launch. It's not like a tech where like in a week everything happens. It takes months and months and months. Shampoo, body lotion, body wash. The ambition is to take over everyone's bathroom. It's to be the Aesop of the future, a more sustainable version. But yeah, and I travel with my hand wash, and I just go through security, and then I add the water when I arrive at my destination. So that works really well. But yes, I'm also talking to businesses for, let's say, high quality white labeling, because at the end of the day, I have developed a technology and I will have the IP. And my ambition is to reduce packaging. So if I can do that by partnering with other businesses, that's a great opportunity as well.
Grüezi, Sarah. Great presentation. One question: how do you make decisions, and why are you deciding to go the IP route?
Oh, maybe not the most logical thinker. I like to work out a plan from a decision-making perspective. I'm very, very lucky to have a great advisory board. So if there's a problem like this, I talk through it with someone that I trust, who's an expert in whatever field, and I get their feedback. Ultimately, I'm the only one who can make this decision. So I have to have that confidence that I'm making the right decision. And up to now, I've been very fortunate that the decisions I've made have generally gone in the right directions. They've never been perfect. But I think it's a lot of a question of instinct. I make decisions based on instinct and based on asking people I trust. But yeah, that's sort of how I've gotten to where I have at the moment. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
We are going to move forwards. There's still people with their hands up, which means you now know what Martina looks like. So when this concludes, we can definitely hope you stay with us for a little bit longer.
Yes, I want pizza.
We can have plenty more questions and answers. So big round of applause. Thank you. So this is the first of 2 presentations for this evening. Next up, we have Eli, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Unlockf. Unlockf is the result of our very first experiment running Antler in the UK, so our first cohort. That means that the company's been operating since 2019, 2020, thereabouts. It's also just when I joined Antler. So what I always thought with that cohort was, okay, I need to back these founders no matter what, because I've joined just after the investment decision. But in terms of the team behind Unlockf, I would say that the kind of strongest thing that we see with them is their culture, the way that they relate to one another as co-founders. Fortunately, that's fairly critical to the business that they're also now finding themselves building. So I'm not going to go, as I said before, into too much detail on that. I'll let Eli introduce himself and the business and take us through his failure. So if you'll clap your hands, we'll bring him on stage.
Very much. Thanks for that. That's lovely. Yeah, so it's crazy that it's cohort 9. I mean, I remember when we were week 3 in cohort 1. It looks like a very, very distant memory. So I'm very jealous of those of you in the room that are in the cohort. It's a very exciting time. So as Darren was saying, I'm Eli. Before I launch in, I just wanted to say how much I like this format. This is something that I wish we had back in the day where we were when we were going through this, because this is like the best way to learn, right, from other people's failures and mistakes. And I think even within the cohort at the moment, this is one of the things that Antler does really well, is that they help you throughout the weeks of the program to really avoid the biggest pitfalls that a lot of people fall into. So yeah, they didn't pay me to say this. I genuinely am kind of really pay attention during the cohort, because they will help you avoid some of the biggest ones. A little bit about me. So I started my career, I had these kind of 3 chapters. First one was in the army back home in Israel. This is where I learned about kind of analysis, people leadership, solving problems under pressure, that sort of thing. Then I moved into economics, and I'm kind of behavioral economist by training, and I worked in one of Europe's biggest economic consultancies called Frontier. Really interesting kind of cerebral work, lots of data analysis, working on predicting diabetes rates for the NHS, or modeling how the energy market will evolve with every single power station in Europe, or working on these like multi-billion pound M&A deals. Again, really intellectual, but I've always had this itch of wanting to do something for myself and not just to advise others on the businesses that they're running. So kind of, unlike Martina, I'm not really an expert. I'm more of a generalist. So I've done lots of different things, and that's how I joined Antler. And from day one, it was really important for me to find the right people to match with, rather than just solve a specific problem. And luckily, myself, Maria, and Darshak, the 3 of us co-founders, we were all really interested in culture. And that's what Unlockf has been from the beginning. It's been kind of a business that is trying to improve culture. We started with something quite different, which I'll get to, but where we ended up is an event planning assistant. So we help companies organize internal events, from happy hours, magic shows, meditation sessions, offsites, virtual, and soon to be in person as well. This is kind of the product as it looks now, but it's very, very far from where the product started, which is the failure I'm going to go into. Another slide from our kind of investor material. This is something that looks very shiny on the surface, but you can already start seeing the hints of the failure within it. The logos are nice, but well, some customers have only used it once. Some have used it multiple times. Some are subscribed. How does that work? These are all very different companies with very different problems and ways of selling into and servicing. So this is kind of we're kind of post revenue in that sense, and this is where we've gotten to in the time since we launched. But those of you with a keen eye can see that this is not September 2019, which is when we started. So where does that come from? And that's basically the failure I wanted to talk to you about today, which is our failure to build an MVP. And it came in kind of 2 stages. One was actually building something viable, something that people were willing to pay for. We came out of Antler, got that funding that Darren mentioned, for a product that was quite different. We were in the recruitment space, helping companies stay in touch with candidates over time, so kind of hiring product. That completely bombed. People were using it, but not really paying for it. Once we asked them for money, all of them were like, no, thank you. So I can talk about that later if you're interested, but that's not today's story. Today's story is about the M side of the MVP, of really building something minimal, something that solves a specific problem for a specific set of people. And I'm going to take you on a bit of a product journey. So we launched, after this pivot I mentioned, with a cafe, a virtual cafe, something very simple. You choose a topic, you get randomly matched with someone. This is Darshak, my co-founder, and you have a 5-minute chat. People loved it. We gave it to our friends and family. They started using it with their teams at work. This is kind of the height of the pandemic, so everyone was keen for a bit more human contact to preserve that culture. And we started getting feedback from customers say, oh, this is great, but we need something that you can use with a bigger group. So we built another room on top of the cafe, which is called the lounge, which is where you can come in with a bigger group. You can split up into tables. You can have icebreakers in the tables. People like that as well, but they're like, you know what, that's great, but sometimes we want to have one person speaking at the beginning of the meeting and then split up into groups. So we went ahead and built the bar. And with each of these, we kept adding, right? So this is another room where you can start in a presentation mode and then split up into small groups and have little icebreakers in those groups. And we went through these various stages. We spent about 6 months to this point on this product, about 100K. We had just under 1,000 users that have used it. Some of them have come back, some of them haven't. And people have spent about 1,000 hours on the platform. So kind of decent validation, but we realized, and this is what we kind of fundraised on as well, the big money is with hosted events. These are all self-hosted. They can get a bit repetitive. What people really want is to pay for things that a host comes in and does, a meditation session or a workout or things like that. This is kind of a sketch from our fundraising deck. They loved it. We believed in it. We went ahead and built it. And this takes time, right? So you need to hire people, spec out the tech, design it, engineer it, get the right partners on board, start selling it. All of this without killing the previous side of the product and still continue to kind of sell that in parallel. You have to categorize it. You have to kind of really go to market with this. And this took us the better part of a year. So another year spent, another 700K or so. We got to about 10K of revenue in December, which was, again, the height of when people are booking these things. And then we sat down at kind of the end of the year and started, planning January and February and beyond. It's like, wait a minute. People are not going to be using this on a recurring basis. They wanted to do their Christmas parties. What about next month? They don't have really something that fits that need. And it also doesn't really fit our vision of a culture tool, something that people can use to strengthen relationships at work. This is kind of a marketplace. And if we really wanted to build a pure marketplace, we should have gone about this quite differently in terms of driving people to the website and having different volume, different business model. So we started thinking, okay, what's next? How do we improve this? And we built this kind of slight monstrosity of a product next, which is this dashboard where you have your next activity coming up that you've booked, you have your other experiences that you can buy, you have these rooms that you can also go in and do your team time. And we continued to sell this for a while. And again, every single one of these steps is product time, engineering time, go to market, specific specializations. So we were still kind of building these 2 or 3 different products in parallel. And then eventually we said, what is it that we're selling? It's actually a calendar. That's what we want people to buy. We don't want people, if someone comes in and just, I really love the lounge, can I use it? No, we're selling a calendar. Oh, can I really do this like one great event that you have? No, we're building a calendar. And that's where we finally got to this product that we have now, which is this kind of calendar that you can subscribe to and do events with over time. And again, every step in itself sounds very logical, right? You hear feedback from customers, you build, you iterate. But what ended up happening is that we ended up adding and inflating what we have. And then only 2 years in, really starting to narrow down, which is what we should have been doing in the first place. And that has a big cost, right? It has a cost in terms of product focus and in terms of what you're actually building and spending time on, which leads to an opportunity cost of revenue. Some of our competitors, they started at the same time as us, but we were only doing one thing. We're ahead of us in that regard and had a better market position, right? They could spend all of their marketing dollars on marketing to specific people that just had that need rather than to different companies of different types. And of course, this also leads to a funding opportunity cost, right? So, we're now out raising a kind of seed extension with our, 360 or 400K in ARR. We could have been at $1 million ARR at this point if we had really narrowed down on one thing and done that early. So a little bit about the lessons. I might be, 8 or 9 minutes into a 7-minute presentation, but we're nearly there. And there's a star here because, I'm not an expert on startups. I've built one startup. So these are our lessons. We each need to make our own mistakes as well on some things, but hopefully there's something in here that is helpful for you. One, and I should have really known this as an economist by training, right? Always consider the opportunity cost. Every single decision you make, ask yourself, this sounds great, but what are the other things I could be doing instead? So really force yourself to sit down with that question. Learn to kill things and to say no. It's really hard to say no to a customer that's like, oh yeah, I want to try this. Ask yourself, do I want them to try this? Are they going to be my customer in a year or in 5 years? And if not, it's probably much better to say no. Don't just seek usage. It's very hard. It's very easy to fall in love with kind of okay usage. Oh, these people are using it. They kind of like it. It's okay. They've paid us for a few months. That's not what you need. You need people who love the product. It's much better, and I'm sure you've heard this before throughout the program, but it's much better to have, take B2B numbers, 10 companies that really love the product and evangelize about it and would cry and scream if you take it away from them, than having 50 or 60 companies that are kind of using it as a nice to have. Iterate on ICPs early. ICPs are a very handy tool, ideal customer profiles. So this is kind of a specific definition, and you want to write this down, not just have it in your head, of who is the actual ideal buyer. Who are they? Where do they live? What are they using this for? The more specific, the better. And you can change them over time, right? But don't start by trying to sell to 2 ICPs. And then finally, well, almost finally, set goals specifically and explicitly. So if you're about to launch a new feature, or if you're about to try to launch a new channel to market, define ahead of time what success should look like. What am I really trying to get here? What would be good? Because otherwise, it's very easy to fall in love with kind of, okay, there was some traction here, there's some usage here, and then that's how you end up continuing to add and add and add when you should be subtracting. And then finally, and this is kind of the biggest one that brings it all together, is that building one product is really, really hard. Building it, designing it, validating it, getting it to market, aligning the team on it, hiring the right people for it. Whatever you do, and if you take one thing away from all of this, don't try to build 2. Maybe you can do that at kind of Series A, B, and beyond, but even much bigger companies struggle with that. So really, really try to ask yourself, what is the one thing that I can do better than anyone else? Because that's probably what's going to take you farthest. And it took us, over 2 years to get to that point. Hopefully, we're on that track now, but we lost a lot of time and money getting there. And that's my story.
Thank you. So we've done this before. Your hands are already up, but just as a reminder, do introduce yourself and then launch into the question, okay? So, hands went up and down.
Hi, I'm Colin. I was UK7, and I am co-founder of Noetic, or a neurodiversity tech platform.
Cool.
So in all of this, and we're also in a spot of trying to map out what the MVP idea versus what the MVP will ultimately end up being. But you were able to keep the lights on the whole time. So can you talk me through how was fundraising throughout this whole process of discovery? Because ultimately, you get to kind of keep making mistakes and keep figuring things out as long as you can, keep paying everybody and keep the lights on. Yeah,
that's a great question. So we're still early enough, at least until this round. This round is a little bit different already, which is the stage where you can raise on kind of the dream and the story of what's next, right? So even in the seed round, so we raised 1.5 million. They were not investing in the cafe that we've built and in all of the 60,000 minutes. They didn't really care. What they cared about is okay, this is a team that can get stuff done. They can launch this and get people interested in it and get people from good companies to use it. But what is actually interesting is this marketplace of host activities. So that's what we're going to invest in. And we were also quite lucky to be able to do that in the time when the market was slightly more active. So nowadays that might not even have worked, right? So combination of kind of having a clear vision and getting a bit lucky, I would say.
Hello, it's Beryl from cohort UK9. Congrats. Thank you for the sharing all of the things. I want to know how you reached out to businesses and how you could convert the first one. And maybe the rest, if it's possible. Maybe later I can get the rest, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. It does come, that's a kind of specific mini lesson within the ICP thing, is the better you know who you want to reach out to, the easier it becomes. So, and there's only 2 ways to get customers in B2B. It's either inbound or outbound. So inbound means you set up a nice website and you start marketing it and you get people coming to you. Outbound means you emailing, you're kind of reaching out to people. So we use mostly outbound. We found these different profiles of office manager, workplace experience manager, head of people, and we ran this kind of series of LinkedIn and email campaigns trying to reach out to them and say, hey, we're building this tool. Do you want to give us feedback or see a demo? And then we started converting those. And even within that, it only started working really well when we reduced the number of ICPs that we were testing. Because all of these things take time, takes a few weeks to spin up the campaign, find out which copy works, find out who's converting from demos. Only 3 weeks later, you can actually iterate. So, but yeah, we use mostly outbound campaigns for this. And then word of mouth has been a really good one as well.
And then one last question. So I'm looking for that desperation in your in your eyes with your hand up.
So I just wanted to dive. Oh, sorry, introduction. I'm
Yes.
Jonas. I'm not part of Antler. I participated in EF last year.
Oh, nice.
Um,
We're all friends here.
yeah, I hope so. No, I wanted to ask about how you acquired customers. So you were saying that you were approaching office managers, for example.
Yeah.
How does it work in such a case when you approach an office manager of an enterprise customer like the one that you had on the slides in terms of the sales cycle?
Yeah.
Because the way I imagine it is that it's very long and that you still have to convince all the decision makers that sit on the budget. So maybe you can tell a little bit about how you solve that challenge.
It's a great question. There are long cycles in pure SaaS. Our kind of angle, is that it's events, and events is something people are used to kind of delegating to someone. So people work with agencies, people work with vendors, people work with marketplaces. So a company like Google, for instance, it wasn't through the office manager, it was through, you need to find someone with the right job title, but eventually we got to someone who was the global head of internal events. And then we got on a call with her and we tried to understand her needs, right? Okay, so what is it that you do right now with events? Well, we use these 15 vendors. Wouldn't it be nice to just have one vendor that can organize all of these events for you? In retrospect, they might not be the ideal customer for us because of other reasons. But a lot of it comes down to getting on those calls and trying to really learn about their pain. But the more narrow the group of people that you're learning about their pain is, the better you'll be able to sell. So yeah, good sales are always like 60 to 80% listening. And we are able to get through to like finding the right trial, I guess is the right way to frame it. So you don't have to sign up for a year. You can try one event and then you can cancel. But if you don't cancel, you're now subscribed with us. So that was a much easier sell than like, well, yeah, sign a contract with us for all of your events for a year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Eli. So, can everyone smell that? Is it pizza or is it failure? So, I was baking that one for a little while, sorry. So that brings the conclusion to this part where someone is on the stage and you sit and listen. This will keep going. We'll keep the doors open. We'll keep the beers and wine going for as long as it can last. But that will approximately be about 8:39 p.m. Please do hunt down the two people that have presented, ask them the question that you might not have got the chance to ask, but also turn to the person that's waiting to ask the question and ask them what they've done so far, what their perception is of failure, what they take from the presentations this evening, okay? And also just socialize, go. Thank you so much for making this event what it is, and I hope we'll see you again at the next one. We'll ping you the invite as soon as we set the date. But yeah, truly, thank you for making this event what it is. Thank you so much, Eli. Thank you so much, Martina. Thank you.